Welcome to the Mick, a Mook, and a Mike. Hosted by four-time Emmy-nominated producer Frank Mace and retired New York City firefighter, 9/11 first responder, and Vietnam vet, Billy O'Connor.
Today's guest, actress and co-star of the NBC series Night Court, India de Beaufort.
My brother
Frank. How you doing, pal? How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing great. We got a great guest today, India de Beaufort. She'll be joining us shortly. But
I like the name. It has a ring to it.
It does have a ring to it. You know, another thing that has a ring to it is your sartorial splendor. Look at how great you look today.
Sartorial splendor.
Sartorial splendor.
You know, I never thought anybody would call me say I had sartorial splendor. That's a real first for me.
Well, you look. You have white linen pants on. You have a nice shirt.
This all comes from the expansive house I have. No longer, I'm not under 30 feet at the boat. I'm up at the house.
You're up at the house, huh?
Up at the house in the mountains.
You're doing some work up there, I see.
Fucking unbelievable. And here's a guy who always thought manual labor was the president of Mexico. You know what I mean? I had no idea. I didn't even like to be around people that work since I retired. I didn't even like to go into restaurants because people work there. You know what I mean? Here I am busting my ass.
Yeah.
I'm talking about busting my ass. Scrubbing decks, staining it. But my son's there to help me out. So thank God
he's probably
he's doing it.
You probably said over there, over here, over there.
No, that's the producer mentality. I'm down here with the men, Frank. I like to get soiled. I'm a union guy. You know what I mean? I like to get in there with the men, blue collar. You know.
So you had an eviction going?
Oh yeah, I don't want to get into that. Yeah, please. Bad enough. Oh, she puts up that thing on Facebook. Desperate family. I said, Jesus Christ Almighty, things are bad, but they ain't that bad. Oh my God Almighty. Anyway, yeah. Well, you know what? I mean, it was a landlord that screwed him. Like her whole family got evicted, and they were there for like there's 6 of them in there, and they had sheep and they got chickens.
Who are them?
My wife's
your
family.
Wife's family.
My wife's.
Your
family.
wife's.
My in-laws. No,
your in-laws. They're like
step family.
Yeah, your step family.
My step family.
It's Jennifer's family.
Jennifer's family. Well, what happened is they were on this farm and they got sheep and they got chickens and they got everything else and they've been raising these things for 2.5 years. Her son has done a ton of work, stayed in the whole place, put fences up, and then it turns out that they don't own the property. Like the people they're paying the rent to. The bank owns the property. The guy's been pocketing the rent for 2.5 years. So they get an eviction notice. The sheriff says you got to be out in 6 days. 6 days.
Wow.
So, oh, man, nightmare. Anyway, nightmare. They found the place, amazingly enough, only 4 houses away from me.
Of course.
The Pine Mountain Club.
Of course.
Oh. So,
I thought.
Yeah, I know what you thought.
I thought they were moving into your house.
Thank God. My house is too small. Thank God. And Timmy was there, which is good. But yeah, oh man, oh man.
And your Jennifer's daughter is no longer married.
No, because the guy she married was a mook. You know?
A mook.
No offense. No offense. No, he was a real piece of work. This guy is, you know. I mean, when you don't take care of your kids, you're a piece of shit.
You are a piece of shit.
And that goes without saying. I don't care what the circumstances are.
But he's pretty well read, I understand.
Dumb as a box of rocks. I mean, he's a box of fucking. He's an iron worker, you know. But so the guy makes good money. Iron workers make good money.
Yep.
But since he's been divorced from her, I think he's knocked up 3 different women, you know.
He must have the dick of death.
D.O.D.
He must be like Pete Davidson.
Uh-oh.
Pete Davidson's got another fucking.
He went to a car accident, right? Some driver while.
Yeah, I mean another time. I mean, he's a repeat offender. Bob Huggins, the coach of West Virginia, is a repeat offender. He got pulled over again for drunken driving after being convicted of drunken driving before. After had his contract cut by $1 million for uttering a racial slur. These guys are fucking.
Was Davison arrested for drunk driving or reckless driving? Is he like?
What's the difference?
Oh, I don't know. Is there a difference?
Can you?
Me always being cautious as a driver and never driving impaired. I would know. I mean, Is there a difference? Reckless driving, I mean, I guess.
Well, if you're drunk driving, are you reckless driving?
Yeah, but you're also, I mean, the drunk drive would be the hard rap, I would think.
Yeah, I get it.
But I mean, this is like, I don't know. I'm not a Davison fan, particularly myself. I don't think he's that funny. Apparently he did something right,
Well,
He's on every kind of commercial known to man at the moment.
the DOD. I mean, he's supposed to be like. Well, I don't want to get into.
What is it? A par 5 and
Yeah, I guess so.
a dog leg on it.
I don't get. We've got India coming up, so it's not an appropriate topic for us to be talking about.
Especially somebody like me with a par 3. I wouldn't want to be talking about a par 5, knowing nothing about it.
Yeah.
But Davison,
Yeah, he's. I don't see any.
I don't see anything that's super funny about him. I mean, to me anyway, but it's subjective.
Who do you think is funny?
Well, I mean, the old school guys. I like Pryor and Dangerfield and Colin, of course.
Who alive do you think is funny?
Me. Let's see. Who alive do I think is funny? Who do I look at?
Maniscalco?
Yeah, I think he's all right.
Burr?
I like Burr. I think Burr's good. I think he's good. I mean, Burr, he's fearless, which is something that every stand-up comic strives for.
Derek, who do you think is funny?
Wow, good question. Dave Chappelle.
Chappelle is great. I love Chappelle.
I think
giant.
Bill
He's
Burr,
undeniable.
Bill Burr is funny, for sure.
Chris Rock?
Chris Rock is very funny.
Chris Rock is super funny. I think
Chris Tucker?
There's a new guy. What is his name? David. It's a
that's
big
a
guy
weird name,
in Austin.
David. It's easy to remember.
I can't think of his name, but anyway, he's pretty good, especially spur of the moment, working the crowd.
Which is hard to do.
Yeah.
That was Rickles, your buddy's forte, working the crowd. I mean,
that was his forte.
Nobody did it better. That's a hard thing to do, crowd work. When you're going out there with a set routine in your head and you know the routine, you can do 45 minutes, no problem. But then if somebody interrupts you and you're one of those comics that goes on rote memory, the interruption becomes a distraction. It fucks you up.
It's funny you say that because I was just reading that Joan Rivers has got cataloged all of her jokes. And now there's 65,000 jokes that she's got typewritten on a card. But what she did was she wrote down 12 responses to hecklers.
Oh, really?
So she had at the beginning of her career.
Yeah,
she had them. She could go to them right off, and they were great.
Yeah, that's every comic's first fear is what if I get heckled? What if people not laughing and I get a heckle? How do I handle it?
Well, she had 12 ready responses that were good to go.
Yeah, I've seen some good. I see some good comics work a crowd like There's nothing more distracting when you're doing stand up and the guy and his wife or something right below you in the first row are talking to each other. It's like you're trying to do stand up and it's like, and this one comic, good friend of mine, he looked down when guy and his wife are talking. He says, hey, where'd you learn how to whisper in a helicopter? And the old don't you belong out in the ledge or what are you the life of the family and family picnics and all that shit but so you're afraid of hecklers in the beginning, but Joe Rivers had, like you said, a catalog. I see filing cabinets.
Yeah,
of
she had filing
index cards.
Yeah, 65,000 of them.
Wow.
Yeah,
makes sense. The guy's name is David Lucas.
David Lucas.
Yeah, he's
I gotta check him out.
Very new comic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you should check him out. He's very good. He's very good at killing the crowd.
I think, like you said before, Chris Rock. I love Chris Rock. I think Chris Rock's early stuff is amazing. I think he's not as funny as he was, but who is? I don't know who is. Like to break through, do you have to be better when you break through? I mean, the real test is to be able to do it day after day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, longevity. Like Rickles.
Speaking of longevity, why don't we bring on Joe West?
Oh yeah,
all time most major league games umpired in.
Who's more
history.
Professional than
Frank's
this guy?
the master of segues.
I mean,
the master of segues. He can segue from anything. Segue from Coca-Cola to
Pepsi.
heroin. No worries.
Well, Joe knows nothing about heroin, but he's my heroin. No, he's not my heroin.
Your heroin?
What's what?
What is
He's my
something
hero.
about Joe we don't know about?
He's my hero.
Oh, that's sweet.
My hero.
That's like the sweetest thing he said in a long time.
Let's bring this fabulous man on,
Mr. Joe West.
who's
way
returned.
out west.
We'll hear about his trip to Hawaii.
Wait.
Oh, yeah.
You're the only one that uses that. So, Derek, can you
Okay.
bring on our friend Joe West?
Joe West.
There he is.
Mr. West himself.
No introductions are necessary.
Himself.
Amongst us four.
Oh my goodness.
So
Everything good there?
how was Hawaii? There was lots good there, I would imagine.
Oh, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. We started out in Maui because Rita had a friend that was a big Cardinal fan that used to come over to visit Mike Shannon because he did some work with Budweiser. And he's like the maitre d' at a restaurant called Coe's, which is in the Fairmont Hotel. And so he set up golf for us the first couple of days, and then we went up to Kapalua to play golf, which was unbelievable. Just gorgeous setting, looking at out over the ocean for almost every shot. And Kapalua was extremely difficult. It was not by any means
Windy,
easy.
windy,
And
no
windy
doubt.
because we played right in the middle of the day when the winds had just started to pick up. But the funny thing is, we spent 5 days on Maui, and then we went 5 days over in Oahu. And the first 5 days we were on Maui, I saw 2 chickens, 5 roosters, 4 deer, 3 mongoose, and 1 electric car. Just one. Just one. And it was a great trip. And Maui is kind of like you would call rural. I mean, they're not high-rise hotels or anything. In fact, we stayed at a Marriott. I think the tallest building in the area we stayed in was about 3 or 4 floors. But when we went to Oahu, that's just like going to New York City.
Yeah.
That was all high-rises and stuff on the beach and stuff. We did go to a luau. We did go to Pearl Harbor, which was very humbling. And we took the tour of the Arizona and the Missouri battleships. And, they say that the Arizona is still leaking oil, and they showed us it was still leaking oil from the bombing from the 1941. But that was a very humbling experience. And it was a great trip. And, of course, the golf course we played on Oahu was the one where they played the Sony Open. And I played with an old-time quarterback named June Jones and a guy named Al Souza. And, of course, Rita beat all of us. But
Wow.
it was a lot of fun. And you probably remember June Jones was a backup quarterback for Bartkowski when he was with Atlanta. And then he left there and he became a coach.
He was a great coach at the University of Hawaii.
Yes, he actually left the San Diego Chargers to take the coaching job at the University of Hawaii, and he put them on the map. I think they actually played in a regional bowl game or something, but he was a great, great coach. In fact, Bartkowski at one time said that if June Jones had been our offensive coach when I was quarterback, he said, I'd have been much better. So, I mean, he was a well-respected coach, so but he was fun to play with. And the other guy that was in our group was a guy named Al Souza, who was the Hawaiian state golf champion for about 15 years. But he's 83 now, and even though he can't hit it as far, he hits it dead straight. So he was tough to deal with, but it was a lot of fun. It was a great play. And then we played this one course called Koalina. There's actually a hole where you drive your cart through a waterfall to get to the next hole, through a waterfall now.
Wow.
And that was the one I probably was most impressed with because of the way it was laid out. It was one of the prettiest courses I've ever seen. But it was a lot of fun. We took a helicopter ride, and it was very impressive. And it was one of those things where I thought, well, this guy's just going to zip around and get it done. But no, he pulled right up to the sides of these cliffs and stuff. He let us see the longest waterfalls supposedly in the world. And of course, they were big waterfalls. They're probably a foot wide at the most, but I mean, they were just spectacular. And it was a great trip, and we had a lot of fun. Just as we were getting on the plane to come back, Rita looked at me and said, "Do we have to go?" So she had a great time too. It was a wonderful trip.
It was the first time you've been there, correct? Either
First time either one of us had been there. Yes, yeah. But if you get to go, it's a lot of fun. It's a long ways because it takes you a day to get there and a day to get back. But it was beautiful, beautiful. A lot of.
Well, Joe, you're looking particularly well these days. I'm willing to say retirement is suiting you.
Well, I don't have any daggers in my back coming from the dugout. So, yeah, I'm not bleeding like I used to.
I went to Hawaii for my honeymoon. I swear to God, it was like
Which one?
the second one. The one I'm totally involved in. And I swear, look, the first thing I said, it looked like Florida on steroids. I mean, everything was just blown up. I mean, it was just fantastic. Great. No, I'm serious. The palm trees and the whole deal, the whole climate, steroids. It was amazing. I loved it. Beautiful.
Well, I almost called you last weekend, Joe, because I played in a wiffle ball tournament back home. A bunch of 70-year-olds. You might want to read my blog someday. Anyway, playing a wiffle ball tournament. Every guy's 70 years old. We had a disagreement on the rules. I was gonna call you to get a ruling, Joe. But
you would have impressed your friends, I tell you that.
Yeah, well, and they were people that would not be impressed.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to call you to ask for your determination, but it was a great weekend for us.
You mean they were the kind of people that would argue with me anyway, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
They would not give a shit that you umpired 5,500.
What does he know?
What does he know about our rules?
That would have been impressive, though. Let me settle this right now.
Yeah, I'll get my friend Joe West on the line. What else is going on?
Well, it's kind of funny. Willie was talking about his second, third marriage and all that stuff. I got an article yesterday. The guy got up in the middle of the night. He went downstairs, and when his wife kind of woke up and looked and saw he wasn't in the bed, she couldn't find him, so she went downstairs. She found him at the kitchen table, and he got a tear in his eye. And she said, "What's wrong?" He said, "Well, do you remember when we first went out?" And she said, "Yes, I do." Said, "Well, I remembered that tonight." And so it kind of woke me up, and I got a tear in my eye. So now she starts crying. and he said, "Do you remember when your father caught us in the back seat of my car?" And she says, "Yes, I remember that." And do you remember when he said, "If you don't marry her, I'm going to have you put in prison"? And she said, "Yes, I do remember that." And she got another tear in her eye. He said, "Well, if I'd let him do that tomorrow, I'd be out of jail."
Never fails. Joe West.
That's a high note.
Great. Thanks, Joe. We'll see you next week for more of your wit and wisdom.
Always good to see you, Joe. Thanks for that, brother.
Killing it.
That's funny.
Yes, Frank.
I don't have anything. What?
Oh, I thought you were asking me a question.
I know, but let me. We have a guest, India de Beaufort. Why don't you just bring her on? We'll just go from one beautiful soul to another.
Oh, that's great. Wow, this guy.
Master of the segues. Master of the segues.
Speaking of polio.
Hey guys.
Hi, we can't see you.
Can hear you.
Oh God, we're finding the video button. So okay, I see it. Okay, there it is.
Excellent.
All right.
How are you?
Hey, I love your hair.
Hey.
I love you, period.
Oh, you guys.
That's my partner, Billy O'Connor.
Pleasure to know you. Dear. Pleasure.
That's Derek Harris.
Hello,
It's
hello.
a pleasure.
Does the master of the Zoom links?
Oh yeah, that's my expertise.
So, India, I want to start off by saying you're British, but you don't have a British accent, or are you putting on an English accent?
you're going to hear it. It's going to come out somewhere along the way. You're going to hear me say something like oregano or basil.
Well, yeah, that's oregano or basil or tomato, that kind of thing.
But do you
Yeah.
do you normally speak in a British accent, or are you totally American accent now?
No, I'm sort of a weird transatlantic hybrid, which is honestly somewhat problematic because it would be so freeing to get to play a character without having to do an accent.
Well, you don't have to do an accent here because you just talk the way you talk.
Right. But when I'm working, it would be really nice to just talk like me.
Yes.
But the problem is that if I talked like me, I would sound like either an English person who can't do an American accent or an American person who can't do an English accent. So I always have to either visibly put on an English accent, which takes a bit of work, or round everything out and make sure that I'm fully doing an American accent, which also takes work.
It's amazing.
It's amazing to me. I can't believe when she said talk like me and transatlantic. I could pin the British accent, but other than that, unless I'm listening for it, it's.
But we've been through 17 episodes now of Night Court, and I never gave this a moment's thought because your English accent is so spot on.
Yeah, I mean, if my mom was to call right now, I would snap right back in. And that's also weird too, because when I go home to England, I mean, I think my family thinks that I've got a bit of an American twang, but for the most part, it nudges back a bit more. My husband's American, my kid has an American accent. I don't really speak to anybody English very regularly other than my mom. And she said that when I'm angry and I'm talking really fast, I get more American.
Really?
And when I'm just chatting with her and she gets me to calm down, I get more English. So
You were born right on the Thames, right? You were born right in Surrey?
yeah, I was born in Kingston upon Thames.
And do you miss it? Do you miss England at all?
I miss my family a lot.
Yeah.
I didn't think it through. I was born in Kingston. I grew up in a place I was on the border of Surbiton and Tolworth. And yeah, I don't know. I just was up for this big adventure, and it didn't occur to me that one day I'd have a kid, and I'd probably want my mom down the road.
Close.
Yeah.
Has your mom given any thoughts to moving to the States?
She would never move. She comes for a good, decent stretch. She'll come for 5 or 6 weeks at a time. But my brother is in England. He has 2 kids. All of my family's in England. And my mom has friends and community there. So I think that it's, she has a wonderful life there. But I do manage to get her for long stretches.
Well, I would imagine with your son, Crosby James, that's a reason for her to come quite often.
Yeah.
Wow.
Comes to the ground. It's such a different era. I was born in Ireland, India, and all my family's still in Ireland. But of course, I was born in 1948. And when I came over in 1950 by boat, it was a 3-week crossing. It was when my mother said goodbye in Ireland, it was pretty much goodbye. And at 27, when she left with 2 kids, there was no. It was like an Irish funeral, the New York funeral they called it. The Irish going to New York and not coming back. But now the world is such a smaller place. Your mother gets to come over for 6 weeks and Zoom calls and.
Yeah, it's great. The Zoom calls are great.
Whole different world, which is great. I mean, it makes it smaller, the world smaller.
What made you come to the States?
I was dating a guy at the time whose sister was out here. She had decided to move for 3 months. And she said, hey, do you want to come out and see what LA is like? So I was like, okay, long vacation. My brother had taken, a semester from school to travel around the world. So I figured this is my version of that. And I came out for a couple months, and the sky was brighter and the sun was wonderful. And it was just a really beautiful place to be. And I felt like I was home.
Wow.
And after that, I was fortunate enough to get work that brought me out here for longer periods. And then the next thing I knew, I had a husband and a dog and a house and a child. And now I'm not.
Tough to pack them all in a suitcase.
Did you come out with the aspirations of being an actress?
At that time, I was in the middle of making the shift. I wanted to be a singer. I started out as a singer, and I did work on a TV show when I was a kid, but I was absolutely terrible.
With Lulu?
And I mostly say again?
With Lulu?
Oh, well, that was just a little fun dip into my mom was in the entertainment industry, and my mom was one of the dancers in Lulu's music video.
Gotcha.
And I went with my mom to set, and they said, hey, actually, we want to do this bit with some kids. Would India want to jump in and play the drums? Play the drums.
Yeah.
Play the drums. And I thought, yeah. And then one of my mom's other friends, her daughter, jumped in, and I think she played the guitar. So we got to do this kind of fun thing together.
Wow.
It was great.
So your mom was a dancer. Was she a regular hoofer, or was she like a ballet dancer, or was she like a chorus girl?
She used to work in sort of in the 70s, 80s. There was way more variety shows in England, and there would be these sort of dance troupes, and they would come to the front of the stage, do a little 70s jig, and then it would say her name across the bottom, and then she'd dance out.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, they were regulars, like series regulars, but as dancers, which is kind of cool. And we don't do that now.
Like the Gold Diggers on the old Dean Martin show.
Shindig and that kind of
yeah.
stuff.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
We're going back to times when television had a little bit more variety in that regard.
A little bit more personality.
Yeah, exactly.
So is that when you got the bite for show business, when you did that little bit, or was it from your mother? You think it was?
Oh, I wanted to be in entertainment my whole life. Both my parents were in the business, but my mom raised me and my brother, so I was a bit more exposed to her side of things. And it just felt like my home. That was my family. The circus felt like a really safe place to be. But my mom was adamant that I don't do that. So I didn't go to a theater school or anything like that.
So what year did you land in LA for good?
For good?
2009, or early 2000s?
I was shooting, in 2008, I shot a co-production between Comedy Central and the BBC. And so that was my first sort of US, UK series regular. And then after that, I started doing One Tree Hill, and that was sort of, it was my first, Warner Brothers was the first studio I had worked for, which is funny to now find myself back with Warner Brothers. And then, yeah, from there onwards, I just kind of stuck around.
How'd you get One Tree Hill?
I had auditioned for, just the usual process. I auditioned, and I was in England at the time when I made the tape, and I had auditioned for one of the series regular roles, but I wasn't quite the right fit. And so I tested, didn't get it. And then a few weeks later, we got a call from the creators, and they kind of said, hey, we couldn't get you out of our heads, so we wrote something for you. And I ended up getting to go back, and I spent the whole season there, which was really lovely.
Flattering as well. I mean, it's nice that they, they write you into the plot. We couldn't get you out of our head. That's kind of a nice ring. I love that quote, by the way. I wrote it down because it blows me away when you said the circus seemed like a safe place to be. I love that. The circus.
Yeah, and it still is.
It's still, and now you're doing Night Court.
And now I'm doing Night Court, which is some of the most fun I've ever had.
How do you like
with
this?
You, Frank?
How do you like this experience?
All the better for you being there.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I love this.
You turned my head.
Have a lot of fun with Frank.
Wow, he's blushing. I'm not
He's not blushing. He's blushing.
He's blushing.
It's that new haircut. It's the haircut you got.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
It is. You're looking real sharp, Frank.
Yeah. What did Billy say about my haircut?
I said, look, did you get a haircut or did somebody fold your face in half and cut around the edges? Next time, tell the guy to use two hands. Stop showing off.
How did Night Court come about?
I had just tested for another NBC show, and I didn't get it. And that same day at 6 p.m., which is a really weird time to get a call from your agent and your manager, they called me and they said, there's something else. It's not the thing you tested for this morning, but they want you to test. And Pam Fryman is a good old friend of mine. Pam is our resident EP director. And I don't know actually the full story of how I ended up going straight to test, but I have to assume it had something to do with Pam. I don't know. I should ask.
It didn't have anything to do with Pam.
It didn't? Oh, so you know, Frank? You got to tell me.
No, but I know that it didn't have anything to do with Pam. I just know that you were somebody that we really liked, and then you weren't the original choice
No.
for the part, and we shot the original part with another actress, and we said we need somebody different, and so somebody said India to Beaufort. I think Tony Sepulveda was a big supporter.
I love Tony. There was a year that I tested for Warner Brothers. There was a year I tested 8 times for different shows and didn't get any of them. And I feel like 4 or 5 of those tests were for Tony.
Yeah,
and that Warner Brothers just kept being my champion, which was so amazing. So I'm so happy to finally get to be a series regular on a Warner Brothers show.
Yeah, it's great. And unfortunately, this year we'd done one show, and then we went out on strike. How is the strike affecting you?
I think the strike is really, really challenging for everyone who is dependent on that paycheck coming in. And, I worry about our crew on the daily. I worry about writers' assistants and PAs and people who are having to look for other work to keep afloat. But I've been out on the picket lines. I'm a pretty regular appearance out there, especially with the Night Court writers. And I have to say, there's something so inspiring about coming together to collectively fight for the good of your community. And I am so hopeful that the WGA strike, and who knows, we may or may not be striking with SAG, will have really, really wonderful outcomes for the creatives, and hopefully that'll trickle down and carry on for the next IATSE contracts and the Teamsters and so on and so forth.
I think that's fantastic that she supports the unions like that out on the picket line. That's just great.
Yeah, I'm not so much concerned about the studios make a lot of money. There's no doubt about that. But the writers, the top end writers make a lot of money. The top end actors make a lot of money. The top end directors make a lot of money. The thing that really bothers me is that IATSE and the workers, they don't make a lot of money. They live from paycheck to paycheck, and IATSE is the union,
okay,
or the people that do the work. And
I was so hoping they would strike. I was so hoping.
Their contract's up next year. So we face another strike next year when we get these 3 taken care of. But, the unions really work long hours. And I think the thing that's got to be addressed is the number of hours that people working. Sometimes they work 14, 16 hours, and then 8 hours later, they got to be back on the set. And that's not healthy.
No, I mean, I don't know how our industry got set in that standard, but I was talking with a friend the other day who their basic day is 16 hours. That's their contractual obligation is 16 hours.
Yep.
And then anything that goes over, they often end up, getting double, but then they'll get traded out with somebody else 10 minutes before the 16-hour mark to avoid that. So then they've made it all the way to that line, but then they don't reap the benefits after the fact.
Yeah, that's the Directors Guild, and that's the second AD.
Yeah.
The second AD can work 16 hours, and if they go one click over 16 hours, they get paid another day. But that's got to be cut back because nobody can work 16 hours. And
nobody can work 16 hours. And it doesn't happen I'm sure it does happen in other industries, but it's very rare. 8-hour days are supposed to be what's a healthy, the healthy time to be at work. So how we got to 16, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and actors get a 12-hour turnaround from the time they leave sets. But by the time they get home and by the time they make it back, even that turns out to be 10 and a half hours. So it's crazy.
Let me ask both of you, because obviously I'm not in the industry. What is it that it's 16 hours? Why is it set as a 16-hour stand? Is it because they write and then they rewrite?
It's not a 16-hour day. Work is set up basically on a 12-hour work day plus lunch. So then you add an hour for half an hour for lunch. Then if you're fortunate enough to get, or if you're unfortunate enough to get a pre-call like India, look at her. She doesn't need a lot of work, but but still, if she's got to be in makeup and she's got a special bit in makeup, she may have to come in an hour and a half earlier to go through makeup. And then at the end, it's just takes a lot of time.
But just say I was hired as a writer. What consists of 6? I come into work. You're not
Yeah,
going to write 16 hours.
don't writers make their own hours, but like on a movie set, the director is really the main culprit. The 16 hours would go into if he wants to keep going. If he wants to keep going, I think that we're moving toward a point, and this writer strike, director strike, actor strike will be a good determination of the days will get shorter. The days are going to have to get shorter because it's just, I think the directors are abusive when it comes to shooting movies.
It's impossible for our crews to have a real life.
Yep.
It's impossible. They if you're in production and you're working Monday through Friday, and then Friday becomes a Saturday when it heads to Saturday. By the time you've gotten home, done your laundry, made a decent meal for yourself, slept a good night's sleep, you're back at work. And so then productions end, and then our crews are going, oh, okay, now it's time for me to check back in with all those friends that I lost.
Yeah.
And those relationships I wasn't able to make because I spent my entire life.
Well, let's get back to something happier.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd like to segue if
Yeah.
You're obviously actress, movie actress. You're a producer. You're a mom, which is the biggest, obviously, title of all. But when you're doing now as a sitcom, besides the regular paycheck, what do you like the most about it? Is it the regularity of it, the set hours, like you can build your life around it?
All I ever wanted was to be on a multicam. That was all I ever wanted. And it's really interesting because there's actually a lot of snobbery around multicam. You can feel sometimes in the industry that people look down on it as a form of making television, which to me is so insane because it is the most challenging job on the planet, in the best way. All I ever wanted to do was make people laugh. And I've bounced around. It's been a long time coming. I've been a regular on a lot of 1 hours and dramas where I was always like trying to do bits and be ridiculous, even though they weren't asking me to. And sort of finally get to be here doing this now. I could not be more content than I am in this moment.
And as Brooke Shields says, her years on Suddenly Susan were the best 5 years of her career because she always knew where she was going. She would be with friends. And she worked, regular hours, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. You may work from 9 to 5 if you're lucky, 9 to 4, 9 to 3. And then, on Thursdays and Fridays, you work longer hours, but, it's predictable.
Yeah, and an unpredictable business. It's predictable. And the security has got to be wonderful. You're not scrambling all the time. Where's my next gig? What's going to happen? Like you're locked in.
I think it's still... I get to spend 5 nights a week sitting at the table eating dinner with my son. I'm not in Canada. I'm not in Utah. I'm not in New York or some other place. But on the flip side, we're still a network show. So you're still watching those numbers and going, am I good? Is it good?
Yeah.
Are we going to get more? Will we do more? I don't know that unless you are friends, for example, I don't know that you ever think, okay, this will be 5 years. This will be, every year you're just waiting to see if there'll be one more. But this is actually the first time that I heard the word season 2. Although Dan Rubin likes to joke that actually it's season 11, so it doesn't really count.
It really is for us season 11 because we shot the pilot almost 2 years ago, and it took almost it took over a year for it to air. We shot in September in the summer of 2021, and it didn't air until a year and a half later.
What's the normal turnaround on something like that for your other shows, Frank, that you've done that's successful?
3 months.
Is there a reason for that? I mean, is it just this particular show, or is it the bureaucracy of the business now?
Our show was picked up for mid-season. So it could have been on in the fall, but it was picked up for mid-season. So enough of that. But how much fun is it working with Melissa Rauch and John Larroquette?
Well, they're the nicest people on the planet. Melissa's just the sweetest, most giving human being I ever met. And John, just, I really enjoy hanging out with him. We go and have dinner sometimes, shoot the shit. Wait, can I say?
Yeah, you can say
Anything you want.
Okay, good.
I mean, have you met Billy O'Connor?
You can say anything.
Yeah, he's got he's just a wealth of stories, the best kinds of stories. Plus, watching him work is just like a masterclass in seeing an actor do what they do best, and I'm really grateful to get to sit and observe him.
And he really does do it best. He
really does. There's no question.
In the pilot, he had the funniest reaction that when Melissa said, "I'm Harry's daughter," and he goes, that wasn't written. That was all John. And it was the funniest thing you can imagine.
He's incredible.
He sent me a picture the other day of. I asked him how he was doing. I just check in with him periodically, and he said, "I was just mowing the grass," and he showed. I wrote back. It's good to see somebody plowing the back 40, because that was literally was. He had a back 40, and he was on a lawnmower, and he was just doing all the work himself.
Oh yeah,
driving around. Huh? Larroquette, to me, seems like he just brings his presence, his personality to the screen. I mean, it doesn't look like he's acting. It's him. Do you strive for that? That kind of being natural like that when you're doing a character?
Oh, he's so grounded. And that's what I actually said to him this year. If we're being super honest about ourselves, which I always think is healthy on a podcast, when I watched my work last year, at the beginning of the season, I could see some of the things that I'm used to me doing. And then throughout the course of the season, I started to feel like I clicked into a way of acting that's not the way that I would like to. I felt like I would expect more from myself. And I think actors are always their worst critics. But I said to John at the beginning of the season, can you help me? I need your help. Because sometimes we could be so busy chasing a punchline that we forget to ground the characters that we're playing. And from where I'm standing, it seems like he never ever even has to think about it. He's just so sunken in at all times. And while of course there is, Dan and John are not the same person, but there are elements of him.
Sure.
There's crossover, but he just flawlessly meanders between both. And sometimes I wonder, is that a God-given gift, or a goddess-given gift? Are you born with that? Where did it click in? And he's the most giving actor that he was like, of course I'll help you. What do you want to know?
Yeah.
So I'm excited to play with him this year.
And I think in the old days, when Reinhold Wigge was writing the old Night Court for John, Dan sort of took on the personality of John. And then and then John started writing for Dan. Riney started writing for John as Dan, and it became very natural for John to do that. And then he seamlessly got back into that, as Dan Rubin has written for John as well. All of these Dans and Johns and everybody else.
Dans and Johns. But thank God we've got a Reinhold in there, just to shake things up.
That's Dan's real name. Dan Fielding's first name is Reinhold.
Yeah.
You're in the racket, 40 years now?
Yeah.
40 years. 40 years. Is that, I would think that's a normal thing for a writer. Whoever the dominant personality is in a sitcom, you would write more for them. I mean, that's for the course, no?
You want to write toward the voice of your people. Wouldn't you agree, India?
Yeah, I feel often that when I've started out with a character, there's a little bit of a stumbling at first, and then a bit of you ends up inevitably in the role. And I think because you're getting to know the writers better, and then they're hearing your voice as they're writing, so it would be impossible, I imagine, unless we never met and never interacted for anything else.
Yeah, in the old days of the movies, they used to have, the Marx Brothers had their own writers, so they knew their voices. Bing Crosby had his own writers. Bob Hope had his own writers, so they knew their voices. Now you get 6 episodes into a show before the writers really have heard the actors' voices and can skew the writing toward the actor or the actress.
That's an interesting take. In the old days, they brought their writers with them.
They did.
So, I mean, it's just like a stand-up guy. If you had a stand-up guy and he got to make a movie, a stand-up comic, his material, people know their material is material.
Yeah, because stand-ups always strive for comedies, but if the material doesn't deliver what the actor or the stand-up was known for, the series fails. Yeah. So that's why when you have a Tim Allen, you know the character because that's what the character does. How about Melissa?
Oh,
she is the nicest person in the world, isn't she?
Right? She just she's like a fairy nymph from a Disney story. So sweet and kind and lovable and considerate. I've never seen a person give themselves so wholly in the interest of others. She barely ever, she's just so unbelievably giving. And what's been really nice too is that we have kids around the same age. So we've gotten to kind of bond in that respect. And it's really nice when the EP of your show, both Dan also has a little boy. It's really nice when they know what it's like to be a parent and there's a bit of an understanding there while we're trying to do our job because we all know what really matters. Yeah. But yeah, she's just, and so talented. She's just so funny. It's criminal that there's all that locked up in this one package. This sweetness, kindness, beauty, and hilarity and talent, and she's the mother of us all.
Yeah, she is.
I love that line. What really matters. I mean, that's you can put that on anybody's gravestone as their epithet. If your kids love you, as you're walking out the door, I think you've done good. That's good enough. I'll take that.
Yeah, I am not going to care when I'm 80 what I pulled out in terms of my career. I'm going to care if my kid is standing there next to my bed and feels proud and he's going to miss me,
As being close to 80, I don't think you're more right. I can tell you couldn't be more right.
Make it 90s.
105.
Make it. Yeah, well, I'll see 105. Billy, I'm not so sure.
If I see 105, you'll know because I'll be selling newspapers on the corner. That's
Yeah, well, I'm sure you'll be wearing that hat too.
Probably the same one too, Frank. Got a deal.
Well, one good thing is that when we come back, we've already gotten shows written, so we'll be back at the ratification of the writer's strike. We'll be back within 3 to 7 days of the end end of the writer's strike. So we'll be able to hit our October date, God willing, on NBC.
And India gets to say season 2. That's pretty cool.
Well,
16 episodes in the bank so far. Is that what you got?
Well, we've got 16 done, and one from season 2, and 12 more from season 2, and then hopefully a back end, and then hopefully
season 3.
Season 3 will be a full season. Hopefully,
we came out of the gate strong with the one we got in the can. So
yep, and it's the subsequent scripts are even stronger. So
nice.
I'm looking forward to that. What are you watching on TV these days?
Oh, I'm watching. Have you guys seen Silo?
No.
Oh, it's so good. It is
Silo.
Silo. It's on Apple.
Both take notes.
Everybody's taking notes. We got a lot of clout. You know that? Look at it. Everybody's taking notes. Silo.
It's so good. I always do this. I'm always ranting and raving, and then people will be disappointed. It's fine. It's my current weekly. I can't wait for Fridays because I just get that hour of television, but then I'm always so sad when it's over because I just want to binge the whole thing.
Is it an American show or an English show?
It's an American show shot in England, and our friend Shane McRae's on the show, which is why we checked it out to begin with, and I have been obsessed ever since. Rebecca Ferguson is the lead. She's phenomenal. And it's kind of a mystery thriller type of thing. It's a little bit post-apocalyptic, but it's not depressing. And because normally I don't watch anything that's going to make me heavy. I didn't want to watch anything pandemic related. I'm not super into The World Is Over. I usually just, I like murder mysteries and stuff that makes me laugh. But this one, so well done and so fascinating and so cryptic. And I just want all the answers. And I'm really, really enjoying it.
Okay. So, Sila, what else are you watching?
We just finished up Ted Lasso, which was amazing. We're kind of checking out Beef. With Love on Amazon Prime is a show written by a really dear friend of mine, Gloria Calderon-Kellett.
And co-starring our friend, Constance Marie.
My husband,
Oh,
Todd Grinnell, and Constance Marie, who I just walked in the Pride Parade with, who was an angel.
She is great. We did 5 years of George Lopez together.
Oh, she's fantastic. I love Constance. And my husband plays a character who he's playing Dr. Miles. He gets to wear very handsome medical ensembles. And he has this really beautiful relationship with Isis King, who is a trans actor. And it's a really wonderful relationship to get to watch, where you see there's no trauma related. It's just two people falling in love. And that's really refreshing for a trans story. So the show in itself is sweet and funny and endearing and wonderful.
Perhaps our audience is familiar with Todd because perhaps because he played Schneider in the renewed version of One Day at a Time.
He sure did.
And that he was not wearing
Scrubs.
He was not wearing scrubs then. He was wearing janitor's outfit, and he was great in One Day at a Time.
He was. I'm so just praying that comes back around. It can't be over. My heart won't let it.
Well, Gloria wrote that also.
She did, and I'm fighting hard because she's a phenomenal actress. She's a phenomenal director. I feel like she'd be a great addition for Night Court. And she just makes everything better. She's just one of those people everything she does is scheduled down to the minute, but somehow she manages to have everything happen on time, but everybody be happy and the scripts be hilarious. Like it's a crazy skill. And I got to be a part of One Day at a Time, playing Todd's love interest, and our son was asleep upstairs in the dressing room, and I was breastfeeding on set and negotiating being a brand new mother. And Gloria made that set the most welcoming, positive place for me to be when it was my first job, 3 weeks, I think, or something like that after I'd given birth. So it was, that show really holds a special place in my heart.
Well, and it's deservingly so. Let me get back to your character, Olivia Moore, in Night Court. We totally skipped over. Why don't you tell us a little about her?
Olivia is A-type, highly strung, very competitive and ambitious. Even though I am playing a female character, in a lot of ways, I feel like Olivia does not care at all about gender. I think she just sees people, a path to getting ahead, and that is where her brain is set. And she also is someone who is lacking in terms of love and empathy in her life. We've touched base a couple times with the story of her mother, who doesn't seem to be the most warm and comforting person. And she seems to be sort of a bit of a stranded, lost pup looking for a home. And we kind of follow along with Night Court as she slowly starts to find her people.
And you played the district attorney, which was the role that John LaRoquette played in the original Night Court.
Yeah.
Do you find that strange, or?
I didn't, because straight out of the gate, John was so amazing. And we talked immediately about the fact that I was standing where he used to stand, and was that weird for him? And he's been such a good guide along the way that I felt, so it also felt sort of natural in this reimagining and sort of new, fresh world we created. But it definitely is tough sometimes, I think, because Markie Post has left such an enormous gaping hole in the Night Court community. She's so beloved, with people in front and behind of the camera, and I think sometimes people think because there are male and female lawyers that I'm there to fill Markie's place, which would be absolutely impossible to do. And it's interesting playing a character that's supposed to be a little bit more the female version of the original Dan Fielding, as opposed to somebody like Marky, who, obviously was the love interest for Harry, and just from what I hear, the most beautiful soul on the planet. So big shoes to fill in a lot of ways, but also making my own pair somehow at the same time.
Well, you're doing a magnificent job at making that happen.
Notwithstanding, sounds like a reverence almost for Marky Post. Who influenced you when you were a kid? Any actress or actors that you tried to emulate or influenced you a lot, or you really look?
Yeah, I watched a whole lot of Friends and Will and Grace growing up. Lucille Ball, I watched when I was breastfeeding. I would sit up in the middle of the night every 2 hours and just watch Lucille, because there was always the Golden Girls and I Love Lucy playing. I feel like smart, funny, brilliant women like Lucille Ball are endlessly inspiring. But I don't think growing up I ever really knew. At first I wanted to be an interior designer and something else and something else. I don't know that I was ever looking at anybody going, oh, I want to be you, except for Britney Spears. So, but as time goes on and I'm watching performances, Carey Mulligan and Rebecca Ferguson and Meryl Streep, and I'm amazed. Helen Mirren is a favorite of mine. Audrey Hepburn, forever and always. Yeah, so many heroes.
Great role models.
Hepburn, just to think the fact she lived the end of her life in Africa working with the poor is like amazing. Just gave everything up and said, the hell with it, I'm out of here. Went to Africa. Just an incredible woman.
She's the most magical, unique, special creature I have ever seen on screen, ever. She tops them all.
What makes her like that to you?
There was just a kind of
elegance,
innocence and purity and elegance about her, and openness and vulnerability, and but also sense of the real world. It didn't seem like she chased Hollywood. It seemed like they accidentally found her, and that she was magical for the time that we got her, but her focus was always on things that really, really mattered. And yeah, we were just lucky to have her when we got her. And I think she enjoyed being here for us all. But I never felt like she had ambition or strive to be a movie star. It was almost like a happenstance.
Hepburn, looking at Hepburn's movies, it's almost she couldn't help being a movie star.
Exactly. She was just meant to crawl out of the screen and grab you by the heartstrings. Like, she's just lovely.
And still, she never embraced being a movie star.
No,
exactly.
Just at the end.
I've never been, even though Marilyn Monroe is this enormous icon, I've never felt myself drawn to Marilyn. But I find myself endlessly drawn to Audrey.
That's great. That's great. Derek, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. Can't hear me.
Hey, Derek.
Hi. I don't know why you can't hear me. Okay, there you go.
Oh, now we've got the radio Derek voice. There.
Yes. Oh, the voice.
The voice.
Lost 1,000 ships.
So I could actually ask you a bunch of questions. I really want to know about your life, but we don't have time for that. So I want to ask something more on the surface. But you said something during the interview thus far that John Larroquette helped you. He helped you with acting. So I want to know what those tips were. Like, if you were to help someone else in the same way that he did, what would you say those things were?
Well, during the first season, I said to him, hey, I think I was really focused on making the audience laugh, which in hindsight, not the smartest thing to do. I think I should have been really focused on making a real human being first. And so I would say to him, hey, let me know if you see anything. And he would speak up and he said, hey, instead of taking 2 beats to slam into the door, just do it in 1. Or, little things like that were more rhythmic, technical things. And then coming into the second season, which we haven't really gotten a chance to start yet, I had this conversation with him where I said, I'm watching myself. And at first I felt like I really saw a real human being. And then somewhere along the way, I feel like I lost a little bit of that. And I really want to focus on bringing that back. And John's thing was, if you can ever feel yourself trying, stop trying.
Right.
Something along those lines. I'm probably not getting it word for word, but I think there's also, the first season of a show, so much happens. We're all trying to keep our jobs and not get fired, create something that has, at least with us, from this property that's currently existing, that's so beloved, and you're like, oh God, I better not fuck it up. And
ooh, you said the F word.
That's okay.
you said I could say anything.
I did say that. I'm just teasing you. I'm just teasing you.
He's just breaking your fucking chops.
There we go. But you're also like, you're trying to build these characters and create these storylines, and also there's notes to be taken and thoughts and feelings, and there's so many perspectives and opinions that the writers are trying to create, whilst also taking care of things that production needs and stay on time and stay on track. And so the first season of a show, I feel like, is always, we're just trying to make something we're proud of, keep our heads above water, and shoot for the moon. And then we'll hear how the audience feels. We'll get to watch it all back and see how we feel about our performances and learn. And then, when you head into the second season, you get an opportunity to really get in there and make the most of what you've got. And you will have learned 50 billion lessons, and now you can put them all into place. And so I find myself kind of bubbling with excitement to do that in season 2. And also with John, I think he's such a respectful actor that if you don't ask for help, he is not going to give it where it is not asked for. But the minute that you say, hey, I'm looking to you, I want to learn from you, please share a little of your magic, he's going to keep an eye out and be a good friend, and I'm excited to learn from him.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. How do you not get lost? And you said something about actors trying to act, or when they're working. I noticed something over the years in LA. It's difficult to determine an actor's true character, so who they are personally, because I think sometimes they take on the characters that they've acted in, or the roles that they've acted in over the years, and they have, I don't know, maybe lost themselves. So the two questions: how do you prevent from losing yourself, and then how do you know who you are truly? I guess that's probably the same question.
I wonder if the actors that you've sort of felt lost themselves were on such successful shows that you could identify with that character so clearly that their world got a little crazy, maybe. Because the majority of our friends are the kind of working actor where I'll be out somewhere and somebody is sure that they met me at that one wedding that one time, or that I'm their friend Susie's cousin from Poughkeepsie who, like, I know you. And so it's very easy for me, at least, I can't help sort of unapologetically just being who I am. I don't have the time or the patience to think about being anything else. And I'm always so hyper-focused on some creative project or work or my family or whatever it is that I don't really think about my actions. Maybe I should think about them more. But I do know that in my life, I have had friends that I knew before they became supremely successful who did not continue to be the same people that they were prior to having that success. And I kind of wonder if the things that level of success brings is really what changed them, as opposed to the characters they were playing themselves.
Right. Okay.
Let me ask you, if you had a magic lantern, what would your future hold? Do you want to write? Do you want to produce? Do you want to act in a film with your husband?
Oh, I love acting with Todd. He's so good. He's just so talented. I would love to act with my husband, but really, I think, I would love to get to have a little bit more control over my life, really. Right. And I have other aspirations. I really love a lot of creative things that I've been, for the first time this year, I put together a pitch deck and started to pitch a concept for a show for an unscripted project that would satisfy more of my creative outlets.
Right.
I love fashion. I throw pottery on the wheel. I do woodwork. I sew and make clothes. And I'm sitting next to a basket of crafts. And getting to do those things and somehow connect them to my working life would be wonderful. But more than anything, I just really want to be wherever my son is. And so building a world where I get to show him what a strong, empowered woman looks like, who is capable and smart and can create and be in a position of leadership and handle all of that whilst also being the best mom I could be and getting to be with him and in the same state and city as him while I do that. That would be the dream.
You don't often hear a surf rat say the word whilst.
Say it again?
Whilst.
Whilst.
Yeah. So can you explain why you have pray for surf over your shoulder?
That's for my husband, who's a big surfer.
Okay.
He grew up on the North Shore of Massachusetts and is a fish.
Oh, okay.
So, every day we pray that the waves will be good so that he can get out there.
Wow.
And have a good time, which is what he's planning to do for Father's Day tomorrow morning.
Oh, great. Great.
I got one more question.
Yeah.
Because I think it's good that we don't let you get out of here without beauty tips. We need some beauty tips.
Oh, beauty tips.
Yeah.
Okay.
So diet, exercise, anything that you can impart to the rest of the world.
Beauty tips.
Come on.
Take note, Julie.
I don't know. Don't give a shit what
Close,
anybody.
close, Frank.
Don't give a shit.
I
Wow.
just don't give a shit. I don't. I think.
So you're out partying on the weekends?
No, I'm not. But that's not because of beauty. It's more so just because I really am tired. Yeah, I'm just really tired. I think the times in my life where I felt the most beautiful is when I surrounded myself with people who love me for what I am. And I know that sounds super schmaltzy, but it's true. The guy I dated before my husband had a lot of expectations about false nails and hair extensions and
Oh God.
fake eyelashes and at times would recommend I bleach my upper lip and be hypercritical. And so then I questioned myself.
Wow.
And then the man that I married, when I met him straight out of the gate, was like, "Oh, I love your crazy curly hair, and I love it when you don't wear makeup." And he made me realize how sort of negative an impact the people that you surround yourself with can have. So surround yourself with people that see you for being beautiful as you are and know that about yourself and just don't give a fuck what anybody else thinks.
Nice.
Good thing.
Excellent.
So there you go, Mr. Supplements.
Yeah, I was
Mr.
expecting
Supplements.
I don't eat cheeseburgers and
No, I eat it all.
I like your style. At
I'm
75
really good
years
at
old,
washing my face.
Good.
There you go.
Good for you.
Wash your face.
wash your face.
Wash your face. That's not bad advice at all.
Billy,
That's
any final questions?
No, I'm just admiring 75 years of my wisdom poured into a young, beautiful lady, right? Don't give a shit what they say about
Don't give a shit.
Don't let the bastards
There
get
you
you
go.
down.
There you
End
go.
of story. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for being with us.
Real pleasure meeting.
Oh, this was so fun.
I hope you had as much fun as we had having you.
Real.
Frank, I'm gonna corner you on set. I've got lots of questions. I want to hear all the stories.
Okay, I'll
There you go.
answer them.
I can't wait.
Catch them at a good time.
Look at the face.
There
it is.
Oh, bless you.
What a
Andy,
beautiful
bless you.
hell.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you
for
again.
having me.
She was terrific.
Oh, she was great.
Really, really vibrant young lady. Just a lot of pleasure. And that's so natural,
Yep, so natural.
Yeah, just great girl.
So, I think we had a good show today.
Yeah, another one in the can there, brother. It's
We had
pardon the metaphor.
we had Joe West, we had India to Beaufort. You can't do better than that. Can't do better than that. And look forward to Night Court returning on NBC early October on it.
Oh wow!
Tuesday night.
So it's going to return.
It's returning for sure.
A booming season.
Oh, so
too.
because you have a,
Did you pay attention to any of this interview?
I
at all?
really, I only paid attention to the things that were important, but no. So I guess what I'm asking is,
strike settlement pending.
okay, yeah, that's what I'm asking.
But it'll
See?
settle at some point in the future.
So what I was getting at is, so you're predicting the end of the strike.
Yeah, I'm predicting the end of it probably.
Wow, this guy has powers.
Probably
unknown.
in August, and we'll return shooting in September, after Labor
So
Day.
he's one of those guys. He knows.
Well, September's when they got the clout, man. September's when
He
the
knows.
writers they're gonna settle a broken nose.
He's one of those guys,
The D's, those, thems, and those guys. You know them guys? Those guys. These guys.
I'll tell you when the strike's going to end.
It'll end when I say it ends,
Yeah.
and not a moment
We're
sooner.
gonna send somebody over there to make an offer you can't refuse. Either your brains will be on that contract or your signature will be on that contract.
Say
All right.
goodnight, Billy.
Say goodnight. Good night, everybody, and thanks for looking in. We
Great
appreciate
show.
it.
Thank you, Derek, again.
Derek,
Oh, thank you,
You're
guys.
the man. You're the man.
Next week's guest, son of Chicago's legendary Hall of Famer Ernie Banks, Joey Banks.
We'll see you next week.